Gavin, even if they do get a deal over the line, neither side here is going to be particularly happy.
That is the thrust of it. In fact, I'm not long off the phone from one source who was briefed on the current state of play in all of this, Colette, and they remarked that it's going to be a bad deal for everyone, but a bad deal for everyone is effectively a good deal because it means that everyone can claim something, even if they've had to concede on something else. Now, I'm told as of this lunchtime there is still no agreement on the exact number of the agriculture emissions and how much they should be cut by. The Agriculture Minister, Charlie McConalogue, understood to still be willing to go no further than 24%. Eamon Ryan, the Environment Minister, demanding at least 26%. It's likely to go to the three coalition leaders later on today for final decision on the actual number. Perhaps they'll land somewhere in the middle of 25, or perhaps one side will win out over the other. But I am told at the very least that the wording of any memo is done, and that in itself is quite important because it means that no matter what the number is, there will now be an agreed political commitment on how the goals are going to be supported and how they're going to be funded, which is something which is going to be of big interest to farmers and agricultural producers, because they're going to want to know exactly what they're going to be given in support for trying to achieve these cuts, which they say are so stringent on their sector. Now, all of this comes against the backdrop of a new update today from the government about the previous climate commitments and how the government is falling short a little bit on those as well. The government was expected to achieve 160 different measures in the second quarter of this year in pursuit of its climate action plan. The latest update suggests that it's achieved only around half of that, and we've been speaking to climate scientists today who believe that the government can do more if it just sets its mind to it.
It's a very comprehensive and transformative set of plans. But in order for the emission reductions to be achieved, all the individual measures have to be implemented on time. And unfortunately, there have been delays. Some of that seems to be down to staffing issues, the requirement to consult extensively over particular proposals. And just the sheer breadth and ambition, I think, of the plan requires a huge amount of buy-in and commitment from the public sector. And sometimes that's wanting.
And Gavin, separately, a new report out today. It hasn't recommended a levy on builders over defective buildings.
Yeah, that's right. This is a long-awaited report into defective apartment blocks around the country, which is going to be published this afternoon. And it is recommending against any kind of a universal levy because it doesn't believe that it simply would be fair to end up putting a levy on all construction operators and all builders and all developers when they weren't all responsible for the problems that currently arise. But it does also say that it would be effectively impractical and pretty much implausible to try and specialise a levy specifically on the developers who may have been responsible for apartment complexes that have needed remedial work in the meantime. Now, there is going to be ultimately some public commitment towards all of this. The public is going to end up footing a large part of the bill for remedial works for these complexes around the country. There has been political commitment previously that there's going to have to be something contributed by builders, and it is worth noting on that front that there is going to be a universal levy that's being considered by government when it comes to the mica situation. There's going to be a universal levy on all builders to try and come up with some of the money that's going to be needed for remediation of mica and pyrite and other properties that were built with defective blocks around the country. There might be an argument that if it's good enough for that programme, that it ought to be good enough and it ought to be considered for universal apartments as well. That is something the government is still going to have to dwell on. We'll see the report on that in a few hours' time.
Right, Gavin, thank you for that.